Captain Jack Harrison had exactly 3 seconds to decide whether to wipe alien spit off his face or start an intergalactic war. Turns out, he'd already done both. The grand hall of the galactic conclave hummed with the voices of 30 different species, a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and guttural rumbles that made Jack's translator earpiece work overtime. He stood in his crisp blue Earth Defense Fleet uniform, feeling like a kid at his first day of high school. 5 years. That's how long humanity had possessed faster-than-light travel. In galactic terms, they were infants who just learned to crawl. "Remember," Lisa Daniels whispered beside him, adjusting her own uniform, "we're here to make friends, not start our first cosmic bar fight." "Can't I do both?" Jack muttered. The conclave chamber stretched 300 meters in every direction, its crystalline dome offering a view of swirling nebulae beyond. Delegates lounged on platforms designed for their specific biology, some in gravity bubbles, others in methane pools, a few simply floating. Earth's delegation occupied a modest platform near the back, befitting their newcomer status. Jack's attention kept drifting to the Varkani delegation across the hall. Twice the height of a human, covered in deep crimson scales that caught the light like polished armor, with 4 muscular arms ending in clawed hands. Their yellow eyes tracked everything with predatory focus. Intel had briefed him thoroughly. The Varkani Empire controlled 15 star systems and possessed a military that made most species nervous. General Dravik, their ambassador, sat motionless as a statue, radiating the kind of confidence that came from knowing you could crush everyone else in the room. The conclave speaker, a jellyfish-like creature named Trilix who floated in a shimmering gravity sphere, raised 3 of its tentacles. "The human delegation may approach and offer formal greetings." Jack's heart hammered as he walked forward, Lisa a step behind. Months of preparation came down to the next few minutes. He'd rehearsed his speech until he could recite it in his sleep. "Honorable members of the Galactic Conclave," Jack began, projecting his voice across the vast space. "Earth extends its hand in friendship and peaceful cooperation. We may be newcomers to the stars, but we bring fresh perspectives, innovative science, and a genuine desire to contribute to this interstellar community." Several species made approving sounds. A delegate with crystalline skin actually applauded by chiming its body segments together. Jack allowed himself a small smile. Then General Dravik rose to his full imposing height. "Enough of this nonsense," the Varkani said, his translator rendering the words in a voice like grinding stone. "We have studied your species thoroughly. You are nothing but primitives who stumbled onto advanced technology through blind luck." The hall went silent. Even the ambient hum seemed to die. Jack kept his expression neutral, despite the anger rising in his chest. "With respect, General, we came here to build relationships, not exchange insults." The Varkani delegation burst into harsh, barking laughter that echoed off the crystalline walls. "Respect," Dravik descended from his platform, each heavy footfall making the floor vibrate. "Your people spent most of their existence slaughtering each other over patches of dirt. You are violent, short-lived, and weak. We've made mistakes," Jack acknowledged, refusing to back down despite the alien towering over him. "We've learned from them. We seek peace." "Peace," Dravik leaned closer, his breath hot and smelling of sulfur. "Your blood-soaked history suggests you don't know the meaning of the word." Other delegates were backing away now, creating space. Lisa's hand moved subtly toward her concealed sidearm. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion in a private setting," Jack suggested, trying to salvage the situation. Dravik's response was to lean down until his face was centimeters from Jack's. Then he spat, a thick greenish fluid that splattered across Jack's cheek and dripped down his jaw. Jack wiped it away slowly, fighting every instinct that screamed at him to respond with violence. "In my culture," he said quietly, "that would be considered extremely rude." What Jack didn't know was that in Varkani culture, spitting on someone wasn't just an insult. It was a formal declaration of war. Dravik's lips pulled back, revealing rows of sharp teeth. The Varkani Empire does not negotiate with lesser beings. Alarms exploded through the conclave hall, red lights flashing in patterns that hurt human eyes. Lisa's communicator crackled. "Captain Harrison, 3 Varkani warships just dropped out of hyperspace. They're firing on our vessel." The station shook violently. Delegates screamed in panic, scrambling for emergency exits. "This was planned," Jack realized, grabbing Lisa's arm. "A setup from the start." "All Earth personnel evacuate immediately," he shouted into his comm. This is not a drill. As they sprinted toward the docking bay, Lisa shouted over the chaos. What the hell just happened? We didn't do anything to provoke them. Jack had no answer. He didn't understand. He'd just been pulled into a war with one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. What the Varkani didn't understand was that they'd just made the last mistake they'd ever make. General Dravik stood proudly before the Varkani High Command, holographic displays showing the burning wreckage of human ships. The curved war room walls glowed crimson, reflecting off polished scales. The humans never saw it coming, Dravik boasted. Their faces showed confusion, not fear. They didn't even understand they were at war. Supreme Commander Voss clicked his claws together in approval. An excellent strategy. The element of surprise gives us overwhelming advantage. The 7 members of the High Command sat around a circular obsidian table, each controlling vast fleets and armies. They were the apex predators of their empire, and they knew it. Show us what we know about these humans, Voss ordered. A hologram materialized above the table, rotating human anatomy, pathetically vulnerable. 2 arms, 2 legs, soft flesh with no natural armor. As you can see, Dravik gestured dismissively, humans are physically weak. No claws, no venom, poor senses. Their planet has lower gravity than ours, making their bones fragile by comparison. Yet they achieved space travel, noted Commander Zira, the only female on the council. Pure accident. Their scientific development was chaotic, unplanned. They stumbled onto faster-than-light travel through a series of fortunate mistakes. Their weapons? Another commander asked. Basic energy weapons, nothing we haven't seen before. Their ships are poorly armored. We acquired their military database. Their tactics are simple and predictable. A young officer rushed in, bowing deeply. Supreme Commander, we've received a message from Earth. Their governments are asking why we attacked. They claim they don't understand what provoked us. The High Command erupted in harsh laughter. They play innocent, Voss said. How amusing. Should I prepare a response? The young officer asked. No response is needed, Dravik said. Our next attacks will make our intentions perfectly clear. Admiral William Reeves stood before Earth's United Defense Council, representatives from every major nation filling the chamber. Decades of political rivalry evaporated in the face of a common threat. The attack was unprovoked, Reeves explained, his weathered face grim. Captain Harrison followed every diplomatic protocol. The Varkani opened fire during formal greetings. Casualties? Asked the council president. 27 dead, 15 wounded. Reeves' voice was tight. The Varkani specifically targeted our engines to prevent escape. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a planned ambush. Lisa Daniels stepped forward, her uniform still stained with dried blood from helping the wounded. Intelligence has discovered something important. The Varkani have already begun attacking our outer colonies. The research station near Alpha Centauri was hit an hour ago. Gasps filled the room. Casualties? Someone asked, voice shaking. 342 confirmed dead, Lisa answered quietly, including 86 children. Silence fell like a physical weight. The council president spoke carefully. Admiral Reeves, what do you recommend? Reeves straightened. The Varkani clearly want war. All attempts at communication have been ignored. I suggest we give them exactly what they're asking for. But their empire is vast, protested one council member. 15 star systems, hundreds of warships. We've barely established colonies on 3 planets. Numbers don't tell the whole story, Reeves said firmly. The Varkani think they know what humans are capable of. They're wrong. What message should we send? The president asked. Reeves thought for a moment. Something simple, something they'll understand later when it's too late. He paused. Send this. You've made a terrible mistake. Supreme Commander Voss read the human message and laughed. Look at this pathetic threat. These humans think they can stand against the might of our empire. If only he'd known what was coming. Commander Susan Blackwood stared at the wall of screens in Earth Defense Headquarters, eyes red from lack of sleep. Her brother had been on that research station, a botanist studying alien plants. Now he was gone, along with his wife and 2 daughters. Commander, the United Earth Fleet is assembled, said her aide, Greg Foster. Susan nodded. On the main screen, hundreds of ships gathered in Earth orbit. Some were old military vessels retrofitted with new weapons. Others were civilian ships hastily armed. It wasn't much compared to the Varkani fleet, but it was only the beginning. Status of Project Sleeping Dragon? She asked. Greg checked his tablet. First wave of dormant defense systems is online. The Varkani don't know about them. Susan allowed herself a small smile. For decades, Earth nations had hidden their most advanced weapons from each other. Now those secrets were being shared. And the AI combat systems. Ready. We kept those off the official military database the Varkani stole. They have no idea what's coming. Across the galaxy, a Varkani scout ship detected an unusual signal. They followed it to a small human vessel that appeared damaged and drifting. "Prepare to board," ordered Captain Krell. "Take prisoners for questioning." Varkani soldiers stormed the human ship, weapons ready. They found 5 human crew members who immediately raised their hands. "You are now prisoners of the Varkani Empire," announced the boarding leader. "Resistance is useless." The humans exchanged glances. Then, instead of surrendering, they attacked with hidden weapons, fighting with a ferocity that shocked the Varkani. Captain Krell watched in disbelief as his soldiers struggled. "Why don't they surrender? They can't win." When the last human fell, the Varkani searched the ship. They found the engine rigged to explode. The humans had been fighting to buy time. If the Varkani hadn't discovered it, the explosion would have destroyed both ships. "This makes no sense," Krell said. "Why would they choose death over capture?" On the Varkani homeworld, an elderly Galerian named Professor Zex requested an urgent meeting with the High Command. The Galerians were known for their long lives and extensive knowledge of galactic history. "I must warn you about these humans," Professor Zex told them, his voice thin with age. "I have studied thousands of species. Humans are different," General Dravik laughed. "Different how? They are weak and primitive. Have you studied their history? Humans fought thousands of wars against themselves. They developed weapons that could destroy their own planet. They survived disasters that should have ended their civilization multiple times. Ancient history," Supreme Commander Voss dismissed. "Their current military is no match for ours." "You do not understand," Professor Zex insisted. "Humans are dangerous not because of their current weapons, but because of how they think. They are incredibly adaptive. When faced with a stronger enemy, they become more dangerous, not less." The High Command ignored his warnings, laughing at the old professor's fears. Commander Blackwood led a small team to a Varkani outpost holding human prisoners. Her ship was tiny and fast, designed to avoid detection. "Remember," she told her team, "this is a rescue mission. Get our people out quickly and quietly." Nothing went as planned. The Varkani discovered them almost immediately. In the firefight that followed, Susan's team was cut off from their ship. "We need a new plan," said one of her soldiers as enemy fire scorched the wall beside them. Susan looked around at the alien technology surrounding them, her mind working rapidly. "I have an idea, but it's going to be loud." 2 hours later, the Varkani outpost exploded in flames as Susan's team escaped with all the prisoners, having turned the Varkani's own defense systems against them. When news of the raid reached the Varkani High Command, the laughter stopped. For the first time, doubt crept in. Captain Alex Carter stood before representatives of 3 smaller alien species who had secretly reached out to Earth, offering help against the Varkani. They were powers who'd suffered under Varkani aggression for years. "Before we discuss strategy," Alex said, "you need to understand what you're allying with. You need to understand humans." He touched a control panel. Images appeared, ancient human warriors with spears, knights in armor, modern soldiers with rifles. "Humans have been fighting wars for our entire existence," Alex explained. "Not just against threats, but against each other. For land, resources, ideas." One of the aliens, a blue-skinned diplomat named Kiri, raised a tentacle. "This is not unique. Many species fight wars," Alex nodded. "True, but humans perfected war in ways most species never imagined. We turned it into a science." More images appeared, ancient battle formations, guerrilla fighters in jungles, special forces training. When the Varkani attacked us, they expected us to fight according to galactic conventions of warfare. They expected us to meet their fleets in open space, to follow predictable patterns. One of the aliens, a reptilian creature named Dex, clicked his teeth nervously. "And you don't. We adapt," Alex replied simply. "Throughout our history, when faced with stronger enemies, humans found ways to even the odds." In a distant star system, a lone human destroyer named the Defiant approached a Varkani patrol of 3 warships, larger and more heavily armed. "They've spotted us," reported the sensor officer. "They're moving to surround us." Captain Frank Martinez nodded calmly. "Right where we want them. Begin Operation Trojan Horse." The Defiant sent out a distress signal, appearing damaged and vulnerable. The Varkani ships moved closer, eager for an easy kill. "They're within range," said the weapons officer. "Now," ordered Martinez. The Defiant suddenly released dozens of small objects that looked like debris, but each contained a powerful explosive. At the same time, the ship's engines fired at full power, pulling away faster than the Varkani expected. The Varkani commander laughed. "They're running away and dropping garbage behind them." Pathetic, then the garbage exploded. The blasts created a chain reaction with the Varkani ship's own weapon systems. All three warships were destroyed. The Defiant didn't survive either. Captain Martinez and his crew had known it was a one-way mission. They'd volunteered anyway. Back at the Alliance meeting, Alex showed footage of the battle. "One human ship for 3 Varkani capital ships," he said quietly. "We call it an acceptable trade." The aliens looked disturbed. This wasn't how wars were fought in the civilized galaxy. "But the crew," Kiri started. "Volunteered," Alex finished, "because they knew their sacrifice would save more lives in the long run." In the Varkani High Command, Supreme Commander Voss slammed his fist on the table. "How are they predicting our movements? We change our codes daily, yet they're always one step ahead." General Dravik had no answer. The war wasn't going as planned. Humans didn't fight like any enemy they'd faced before. Professor Zex was invited back. This time they listened. "Humans evolved as predators," the old alien explained. "Apex predators on their own world. They understand predatory thinking because they are predators themselves." "What does that mean?" asked Commander Zira. "It means they think like you do," Professor Zex replied. "They can predict what you will do because they ask themselves, 'What would I do if I were hunting?' And then they set traps accordingly." Fear flickered in the eyes of the Varkani High Command. "Then how do we defeat them?" asked Supreme Commander Voss. Professor Zex shook his head sadly. "I'm afraid you already made your biggest mistake. You killed their young." He looked at each Varkani commander in turn. "There is nothing more dangerous in the galaxy than a human protecting its children." 6 months into the war, the tide had turned. The Varkani, who'd expected a quick victory, were now losing territory daily. Sergeant Maria Vasquez lay perfectly still in the tall purple grass of planet Nexus 7. The colony had been under Varkani control for 3 months. Maria and her team had been on the ground for 5 days, barely sleeping. "Target convoy approaching," whispered Corporal Ryan Lee through their secure channel. 6 vehicles, 22 soldiers." "Copy that," Maria replied. "Everyone in position. Remember, we hit hard and fast." What followed wasn't a fair fight. The Varkani never saw the attack coming. Within minutes, the convoy was destroyed, and the human team disappeared back into the wilderness. This scene was playing out across dozens of occupied worlds. Small human teams causing massive damage before vanishing. On a Varkani command ship, Field Marshal Gorn reviewed reports with growing concern. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "These humans have been on the ground for days without rest or resupply. Our troops require regular breaks and food. The humans just keep going." The intelligence officer brought up an analysis of human physiology. "We've learned something disturbing. Humans can go days with minimal sleep and still function. Some of their soldiers have been awake for 72 hours straight and still complete complex missions." Field Marshal Gorn stared at the data in disbelief. No Varkani could function without proper rest cycles. In another part of space, a meeting of alien scientists and anthropologists was taking place to discuss the surprising human military success. "The most remarkable thing about humans," said Dr. Plex, a leading xenobiologist, "is not their technology but their adaptability. They learn from every encounter." She showed examples of human equipment captured early in the war compared to current versions. "See how they modified their armor after first contact with Varkani weapons. They've improved their shields to counter Varkani energy signatures, and their weapons now exploit weak points in Varkani ship designs." "How quickly did they make these changes?" "Weeks," Dr. Plex replied. "Not years or decades as most species would require. Their industrial base completely reoriented for war production in less than a month." Supreme Commander Voss faced reality. "We must sue for peace. We can offer to return to pre-war boundaries." "The humans will never agree," said Commander Zira. "They keep pushing forward." Nevertheless, the Varkani sent peace envoys to Earth. They were surprised when Admiral Reeves agreed to meet. "We offer a return to previous boundaries," said the Varkani diplomat. All hostilities will cease. Admiral Reeves listened patiently. When the Varkani finished, he leaned forward. That would have been acceptable 6 months ago, before you attacked our civilians. Now we require unconditional surrender and full reparations for the lives you took. The Varkani diplomat was shocked. But that would destroy our empire. Our people would lose everything. You should have thought about that before you started this war, Reeves replied, his voice not angry, just matter of fact. You declared war on humanity. Now you'll see it through to the end. When the Varkani High Command received this response, they couldn't comprehend it. In their history, reasonable compromises were always accepted. If they won't accept reasonable terms, declared Supreme Commander Voss, then humans are a threat to galactic peace itself. They must be eliminated, no matter the cost. What the Varkani failed to understand was that humans had one quality no other species had encountered before: the absolute refusal to give up, no matter the odds. The Varkani launched their most desperate attack yet. A massive fleet jumped into Earth's solar system, bypassing the outer defense lines. Their target was Earth itself. Commander Olivia Wright received the alert in Earth Defense Headquarters, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Warning lights flashed red across every screen. Varkani fleet detected, announced the monitoring system. 214 warships. Estimated time to Earth orbit, 6 hours. Olivia's face remained calm as she pressed the emergency broadcast button. This is Commander Wright. Earth Defense Protocol Dragon is now active. I repeat, Dragon is now active. Across Earth and throughout the solar system, people moved with practiced efficiency. This wasn't panic, this was preparation. For months, every human had trained for this possibility. In orbit, civilian space stations transformed. Hidden weapon systems emerged from what had appeared to be ordinary structures. Mining ships revealed military-grade shields. Even passenger liners carried surprise defenses. On Earth's surface, people moved into underground shelters, but these weren't just hiding places. Each shelter contained manufacturing equipment. The entire human population was now part of the war effort. The Varkani fleet approached confidently. Their sensors detected Earth's official military forces gathering to meet them. The human fleet was much smaller, only 48 warships. This will be a glorious victory, said Fleet Admiral Krell to his officers. Their pathetic defense will be crushed, and we will bombard their cities until they surrender. What the Varkani didn't know was that Earth had been preparing for this moment since the first day. The official fleet was just the visible part of their defense. As the Varkani entered Earth orbit, Commander Wright gave another order. Activate Sleeping Dragon. Suddenly, thousands of objects throughout the solar system came to life. Asteroids that were actually disguised weapon platforms. Satellites that contained powerful energy weapons. Even space junk that turned out to be smart mines. The Varkani fleet found itself surrounded and under attack from all directions. What is happening? Screamed Fleet Admiral Krell as his flagship shook from multiple impacts. Where are these attacks coming from? On his tactical display, new enemy signatures appeared every second. The space around Earth was alive with weapons that had been hiding in plain sight. Even more shocking to the Varkani was when civilian ships joined the battle. Cargo vessels rammed into Varkani warships at full speed. Passenger ships sacrificed themselves to protect military vessels. A Varkani captain watched in horror as a human mining vessel, clearly piloted by ordinary workers, deliberately collided with his cruiser's engines. These humans are insane, he told his second-in-command. They're sacrificing civilians. That's against all galactic war conventions. What he didn't understand was that for humans, there was no distinction between military and civilian when their home was threatened. Every human became a defender. In her command center, Olivia coordinated the battle with cold efficiency. Screens showed the Varkani fleet being torn apart. Of the original 214 ships, less than 50 remained after just 2 hours. They're retreating, reported her tactical officer with satisfaction. Olivia nodded. Let some escape. We want them to tell the others what happened here. As the surviving Varkani ships fled the solar system, they carried with them terrifying stories. The humans didn't just fight with their military. Their entire civilization was a weapon. Professor Zex met with the remaining Varkani High Command members. Several chairs stood empty, their occupants having been on ships destroyed in the failed Earth attack. Now do you understand? The old alien asked quietly. Humans don't just use weapons. When threatened, they become weapons. Every one of them. Their entire society transforms. Supreme Commander Voss stared at the battle reports in disbelief. No species they'd ever encountered fought this way. "We must strike back harder," he insisted, though with less conviction than before. Professor Zex shook his head sadly. "I fear you have awakened something that cannot be stopped. The humans will come for you now, and they will not show mercy." Admiral Reeves stood on the bridge of the flagship Invincible. The massive view screen showed hundreds of human warships assembled in formation. It was the largest fleet humans had ever built. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said his communications officer. Reeves nodded. "Begin the jump sequence. Destination, Varkani Prime." The human fleet vanished into hyperspace, bound for the heart of Varkani territory. The final offensive had begun. Captain Eric Russell led a team of 12 special operations soldiers. Their ship was tiny, designed to avoid detection. While the main fleet would engage the Varkani forces directly, Eric's team had a different mission. "We'll have one chance at this," Eric told his team as they approached Varkani Prime. "Our job is to get into the Imperial Palace and capture their military command codes." His second-in-command, Sofia Garcia, studied the holographic map of their target. "Security will be extreme. The entire planet is on high alert. That's why they won't expect us to land right in the capital city," Eric replied with a grim smile. "Sometimes the boldest move is the safest." Their ship slipped through the Varkani defenses by hiding in the shadow of a cargo vessel. They landed in an industrial zone and quickly disguised themselves as maintenance workers. Meanwhile, the human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Varkani system. Alarms blared across every Varkani military installation. "Human fleet detected," shouted a Varkani officer. "Over 500 warships." Supreme Commander Voss couldn't believe the display. 6 months ago, humans had barely 40 military vessels. Now they had hundreds, all built while fighting a war across multiple fronts. "How is this possible?" he whispered. Professor Zex, who had remained as an advisor, answered quietly. "I tried to tell you, when humans mobilize for war, their entire civilization transforms. Every factory, every resource, every person is dedicated to the effort." The Varkani population watched in horror as the human fleet approached their homeworld. They'd been told they were winning the war. Now enemy ships filled their skies. In the palace, Eric's team moved carefully through service corridors. Their disguises worked perfectly. Varkani were so convinced of their superiority that they never imagined humans could sneak into their capital. "Command center ahead," whispered Sophia. "Guards at the entrance." Eric gave hand signals to his team. They moved with practiced precision. The guards were neutralized silently, and the team entered the command center. Inside, they found something they hadn't expected: data files for a doomsday weapon. The Varkani Emperor had ordered its construction in secret. If activated, it would create a chain reaction that would destroy not only Varkani Prime but several nearby star systems. "We need to warn the fleet," Eric said urgently. He copied the files while his team secured the room. Aboard the Invincible, Admiral Reeves received Eric's message. The situation had suddenly become more complicated. If they pushed the Varkani too hard, the Emperor might activate the weapon out of desperation. "All ships hold position," Reeves ordered. "Do not advance further." The human fleet stopped its approach, maintaining a blockade formation around the planet. The Varkani Emperor, a massive figure named Drex, addressed his military council. "If the humans will not retreat, we will use the Genesis Protocol. Better to destroy everything than surrender to inferior beings." General Dravik, once so confident, now looked alarmed. "My Emperor, the weapon will kill billions of our own people." "A necessary sacrifice," Emperor Drex replied coldly. "The Varkani Empire will never bow to humans." What neither the Emperor nor his generals realized was that Eric's team had planted devices throughout the palace. Every word they spoke was being transmitted to the human fleet. Reeves faced an impossible choice. If he ordered an attack, the Emperor might activate the weapon. If he retreated, the Varkani would rebuild, and the war would continue. "Sir," said his strategic officer, "Captain Russell is requesting permission for an alternate approach." "What does he have in mind?" "He wants to address the Varkani people directly. Tell them the truth about the war and the weapon their leaders plan to use." Reeves considered this. It was a gamble, but perhaps the only way to end the war without billions more deaths. "Permission granted," he said finally. Let's see if the Varkani people are wiser than their leaders. Eric Russell's face appeared on every screen across Varkani Prime. He spoke calmly in their own language, showing them proof of their emperor's plan to destroy their own world rather than surrender. He offered them a choice: continue following leaders who would sacrifice them or take control of their own future. The response shocked everyone. Ordinary Varkani citizens stormed the imperial palace. They captured the emperor and his generals before they could activate the doomsday weapon. The war was over. 1 year later, the Grand Hall of the Galactic Conclave was filled once again with representatives from across the galaxy. But things were very different now. Lisa Daniels, once a military officer, now stood as Earth's ambassador to the Conclave. The blue uniform of the Earth Defense Fleet had been replaced by elegant diplomatic robes. The rebuilding of the former Varkani worlds continues ahead of schedule, she reported to the Assembly. With human assistance, their infrastructure is now 70% restored. The Varkani representative, Council Leader Tavok, nodded in agreement. He represented the new Varkani Federation, a democratic government that had replaced the fallen empire. Few could have predicted this outcome when Captain Russell had made his desperate broadcast. He'd shown the Varkani people the truth. He'd offered them dignity instead of destruction. Now, a year later, humans and Varkani worked side by side. Human doctors treated Varkani wounded. Human engineers helped rebuild destroyed cities. The same determination that had made humans unstoppable in war drove them to heal and rebuild. After the meeting, Ambassador Daniels walked through the gardens outside the conclave hall. A young Varkani approached her hesitantly, his scales still bright with youth. "Ambassador, may I speak with you?" he asked. Lisa smiled. "Of course, what can I help you with?" "My name is Krell. I lost my parents in the war," the young Varkani said. "Now I study at a school rebuilt by humans. My teachers are human. The doctors who treated my injuries were human." He seemed confused. "I need to understand something. When you had defeated us, why didn't you just destroy us? You had the power. Our leaders would have done that to you." Lisa considered her answer carefully. "Destroying an enemy is easy, Krell. Building something together is harder but more worthwhile." "But we killed your people first," Krell insisted. "We attacked without true provocation." "Yes, you did," Lisa acknowledged. "And we fought back with everything we had. But humans learned something important from our own bloody history." They walked together past flowering plants from a dozen worlds. "The most dangerous weapon humans possess isn't our technology or our persistence," Lisa explained. "It's our ability to choose. To decide when not to use violence, even when we could." Krell thought about this. "My history teacher said humans are dangerous because you can be ruthless, but valuable because you can be merciful." Lisa smiled. "That's a good way to put it." Across the garden, Admiral Reeves, now retired, was speaking with delegates from several species. They were discussing a joint defense pact with Earth. "Make humans your enemies and you will regret it," one delegate was saying. "But make them your allies and you will never fear aggression again." The old admiral nodded but added, "Just remember, the choice to be peaceful is exactly that, a choice. One we make daily." As the sun set over the conclave, representatives from 30 species gathered for a formal dinner. Humans and Varkani sat side by side, former enemies now working toward a common future. A toast was raised by the conclave speaker to understanding between worlds. In a quiet moment, Professor Zex approached Lisa. The elderly alien looked pleased. "You know," he said, "there's a new saying spreading through the galaxy: make friends with humans. For they are the most dangerous enemies and the most valuable allies in the known universe." Lisa raised her glass. "To friendship, then?" Across the stars, on worlds once ravaged by war, humans and Varkani worked together to build something new. The same determination that had made humans lethal in battle now made them extraordinary in peace. The most dangerous species in the galaxy had proven something important. True strength lies not just in the ability to fight, but in knowing when to stop fighting and start building. Captain Jack Harrison, watching from Earth, raised his own glass to the stars. 3 seconds to decide whether to wipe alien spit off his face or start an intergalactic war. He'd done both. But in the end, they'd won something better than victory. They'd won peace, and that he thought was worth everything.